So hopefully you can all still hear me. Let me just double check here. Because I am getting the spinning wheel of death. Okay, so hi again. Hi again, it's Leslie from Punch Media, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about how to use LinkedIn and Twitter specifically for social selling. So I've got a great presentation with all sorts of information that you're going to be able to really take action and use. Let's say LinkedIn and Twitter are the two channels that I'm going to focus on predominantly here, to use social media in order to convert cold calls into warm introductions. So stay tuned. At the end of this presentation, I have a couple of different options that you can take action with. And also, I have my social media specialist, Jaden, on the line here, and she is going to answer any questions you may have. So if you haven't been on a Google Hangout before, up in the left-hand corner, I don't know if I can show you my screen, but up in the left-hand corner, you'll see a little chat box. So when you click on that chat box, then you will be able to enter questions into the chat box there, and Jaden will be sort of fielding those questions. Hopefully, we'll have a whole lot of questions at the end of this presentation that so you'll be able to walk away with all sorts of phenomenal information. So because I haven't done a Google Hangout before, this is a little bit new for me, so I'm going to hopefully show my screen at this point and get going here. So here we go. And hopefully you can see everything. Jaden will be messaging me if you cannot see it. So as I mentioned, my name is Leslie Hughes, and we're here to sort of learn about how to convert higher paying clients without really feeling like you're pushy or annoying. And so this also will have a lot of really great etiquette on how to actually connect with people, how to do a deep dive in research, and so much more. So as I mentioned, I'm Leslie, and well, you just saw me a few seconds ago, but there's pictures of me with some of my favorite marketers. I am a huge marketing kind of nut, so I was really, really pleased to have met all of the following people. The top corner is Gary Vaynerchuk, the bottom left-hand corner is Seth Godin, and then Arianna Huffington is the other person. It's sort of a humble brag there. I just absolutely love these people, and so of course I like to put my my picture up there with them. And as the principal of Punch Media, I actually have had the pleasure of working with some amazing brands, including the Children's Wish Foundation and TVO and the BACD, Jones Lang LaSalle, and lots more. So I'm really, really, and actually I was actually re-interviewed again. So CBC Radio actually called me a social media guru at one point, and then I was just re-interviewed by them yesterday, which I was really, really pleased about. Sort of a little bit of a background just to make sure you know that I'm not full of nonsense and that I actually know what the heck I'm talking about. There's a little bit of a history about me and how I got to where I am today. So I learned basic HTML back, I guess it was 1997 or so, and started working at a company called the Natural Gas Vehicle Alliance, and started working with them to develop their website. This isn't the website I worked on, by the way. It was a much more basic version of that back in 96, 97, and then moved on to Wedding Bells magazine. And I wish I had taken some screen grabs of the of the website way back when, because back in sort of the late 1990s, Wedding Bells was one of the biggest online magazines, and it's just amazing sort of to see the trajectory of that particular organization. But at the time, there was over 500 pages online for Wedding Bells magazine. So I was working there in their web department. Then I moved on to a .com, and I don't know if any of you were around in the year 2000, but I was working at a company called MediConsult and was working with pharmaceutical brands such as Prozac and Novartis to really help design advertising and sponsorship programs. And as you probably know, the .com went .bomb within a year, and it kind of imploded. And then I started working with at a small agency called M Marketing with the Visa Win What You Buy campaigns and something else called the Visa Savings Passport. So kind of went away from the .com for a little bit to sort of direct mail, and then sort of circled back and started working in sales for Wedding Bells and Fashion magazine in 2003. And then started my business, Punch Media, in 2011, because it really sort of seemed that all of my experience with both online and offline, sort of digital marketing and traditional marketing and sales, sort of everything sort of dovetailed together, and everything seemed a perfect fit for me when social media started to make its appearance at that point. So my passion really is to help people and businesses learn how to use tools such as LinkedIn and Twitter and basically strategy development and so forth, so that people can brand themselves properly and dominate the niche that they're in. And I really want to empower you today with confidence so that you know exactly what to publish and how to connect with people, and basically learn all the little tools that you can use in order to connect with higher paying clients. So just before we begin, also, I just sort of wanted to say, listen, I know where you're probably at. A lot of people sort of mentioned to me that they're feeling really overwhelmed, that they just don't have enough time for all the social media stuff. They're frustrated, they don't know where to begin or what to do next. And frankly, I've been exactly where you're at today. It really wasn't that long ago that social media sort of came about. And I remember feeling overwhelmed when there was just the big sites out there. And so I do this all day, every day, and I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours researching and so forth and staying up to date on all the best practices. And frankly, I find these all to be very, very frustrating as well. But the really key important thing here is to stay focused on strategy, and that's the #1 sort of key thing here. So now some people love the word sales, and some people really love this whole idea about hustling. But for me, I find it a little bit intimidating. I've never been the kind of person who really likes to pressure people into making a decision or sort of pushing myself upon them. But I do love to build relationships, and I really love to help businesses, as I once mentioned as well. And it's really, really all about giving great value. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Now, the focus on this training is really to showcase the key issues that you need to learn to leverage social media, and specifically, as I mentioned, we're going to focus on LinkedIn and Twitter to really help you sell products or services and teach you how to market your business and convert higher paying clients. So you're going to learn actionable strategies to create a strong presence, and then key etiquette tips that you're going to learn how to convert higher paying clients. So we're going to start a little bit with the whole idea of social selling. You may have heard this is a bit of a buzz term lately, so we're going to define that for you. And then we're going to talk a little bit about why specifically I've decided that LinkedIn and Twitter are the essential part of your sales funnel. And we're going to go through 2 exercises as well. So hopefully you've taken the time to look through the material that I sent to you via email. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about crafting your personal brand story and the importance of really focusing on your brand. And then we're going to do a deep dive into researching your ideal client and your target audience. So I sent you a little bit of a worksheet on that as well, and I'm going to take you through the process of how to actually implement that exercise. So we're going to actually do a little bit of research on the ideal client exercise. And then we're going to talk about really how to use LinkedIn and Twitter for social selling. So as I say, we're going to actually go through the actual exercise itself, and I'm going to give you some actionable next steps as well. Now, social selling is really about leveraging social media for your professional brand to achieve your sales quota by focusing on the right prospects and engaging with them with insights, and also building trusted relationships. And if you haven't really, really fundamentally, social selling is about relationship building. In a way, it's kind of gone back to, I don't even know if it's gone back to because it's always been there, it's sort of that, customer service and providing great value. And one of the main reasons why now is the time for you to focus on your professional presence is that social media really is no longer a want-to-have in your marketing toolkit, it's a must-have. So when you think about it for a second, what do you do before you actually make a big purchase? Well, you probably go onto Google and do a little bit of research on a particular company or a particular product. And I love this term, actually, before I go on, basically that's the whole idea. Is you probably go onto Google, and so people are actually Googling who you are before they actually connect with you. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And the other reason why social media is so very important is this term that I've actually loved, that I've picked up from an author by the name of Brian Solis. He also calls himself a digital anthropologist. Now, he's coined this term called digital Darwinism. And basically he says that the evolution of consumer behavior is moving faster than the ability that technology technology is evolving faster than our ability to adapt. And so that no business is too big to survive or too big to thrive, and no business is too big to fail. Did I make that right? Too small to thrive and too big to fail. So for example, Blockbuster and Polaroid. Now neither one of these companies really tended to reinvent themselves, and as a result, they didn't survive. And we all have to stay current with the times, because now digital natives and millennials are entering the workforce, and they're far more equipped to deal with how to use technology and how to communicate. So we also have to be empowering ourselves as well. But it's not just because the 20-somethings are entering the workforce. Actually, 83% of marketers indicate that social media is very important for their business. And the #1 benefit is to generate business exposure, increase traffic, and provide marketplace insight. Also, 58% of marketers using social media for 3 years report that it helped them improve their sales. Now, you don't actually have to be using social media for 3 years in order to obtain results, and a little bit over time is going to net bigger results. So it's just really important to be on board with social media. And I love this, obviously I love the statistic because it sort of, substantiates what I'm saying here, is that 78% of salespeople using social media actually outsell their peers. And it doesn't have to be a whole lot of time for using social media, but it's using these tools effectively. Another statistic I read said that over 40% said they've closed between 2 and 5 deals as a result of social media. So again, these are the reasons why you need to be using these tools. So if those numbers sort of didn't convince you, as I mentioned, we're all turning to Google to solve our problems, really. And a study by Forrester said that between 50 to 70 people are researching online before they even pick up the phone. And I'm sure you're like me and you do the exact same thing. So you really want to be thinking about how your prospects and your clients are researching you and what they're going to find. You want to ask yourself, have you created a strong profile that when your prospective clients are Googling to see if you can help them, does your presence actually immediately evoke trust? Because you really only have mere seconds to make a first impression. Now, in traditional marketing, we used to use the spray and pray method, right? So we used to invest in advertising to cast a wide net and build awareness. And advertising and really word-of-mouth awareness seemed to be the only way that we could sell our products and services. We would generate interest, we would generate awareness and then sort of create interest, evoke desire, and then compel people to take action. But now, because of blogging and newsletters, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and all sorts of other different channels, we all have become our own media agencies. And as a result of us being our own media agencies, so too are our prospective clients. So we share a lot of information, and so do our prospective clients. They're out there selling their products and services as well. And when they are out there publishing information about themselves, we can actually do a lot of research about them. So where are they spending their time online? What do they like? What do they dislike? Are they using specific language or acronyms or any kind of sort of insider terms that you can glean from that? Because the more that you learn about your prospects, the more likely you are to be able to speak their language, to develop rapport with them, and then help to convert sales. So, for example, some different ways that the subtle changes of wording can make a huge difference. For me, I often work with clients, but sometimes my clients work with customers. Sometimes my clients work with clients, or sometimes my clients work with patients. And so those fundamental shifts really make a huge difference when I'm speaking to them about their target audience. So it's important that we find our ideal clients and do a really deep dive on who they are, how they speak, what they want, and because the more that we gather and the more we mirror back the language that they're comfortable with, the more likely that we're going to build trust with them as well. So we also have to really remember here that social media is social. I'm finding that my frustration a little bit is that social media has turned into be a little bit of a pushed medium, where I'm finding businesses are simply pushing their messages out to the masses. And we have to remember that it's all about dialogue and not about monologue. That we have to really be thinking about sales as a two-way conversation using these channels. So let me just move a little bit forward here in setting up your strategy. Now, my formula is setting up your strategy and setting up your presence in 3 steps. And as I said, don't get overwhelmed with where if you haven't started already, or if you feel like you're just new to the game. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and a little bit over time is actually going to produce results. So my 3-step formula to really dominate yourself and your niche is, number 1, to create a strong presence. Now, we're going to go through a little bit of a brand exercise today in order to craft your brand story. So this is number 1, is you really want to create a really strong, compelling presence for yourself that effectively tells the people who are finding you who you are and how you're different and how you help them. The second step is to connect with quality people, and I'll explain, but we'll go through an exercise why this is so important, but I just believe we don't exchange business cards without a conversation. So building a database based on quality is far more important than simply just amassing a drawer full of business cards that you never look at again. And as I mentioned before, the third step is that conversation piece, the social piece of social media, of conversing with your prospects. And that way you can convert business. And I'll give you some examples in a minute. So LinkedIn is one of the most essential pieces in your toolkit. LinkedIn, I think, frankly, everybody who's in business should be on LinkedIn, because with over 331 million members in over 200 countries, and 2 new members joining every second, this is the business site where business professionals aren't wasting time, they are investing time on this channel. The demographics for LinkedIn members are a higher socioeconomic status, they're more likely to be decision makers, and they have far more buying power than any of the other social media sites. And as I mentioned, LinkedIn ranks higher than all the other social media profiles on Google. So I think after this session, I really encourage you to take time to go to Google and type in your name. And you might just be curious to see which sites appear first. And so when people are going to Google and they're researching you, what does your profile actually convey about you? Is it up to date? Is it relevant? Does it showcase who you are? What makes you unique? And does it actually effectively, give an example on who you work with? Does it tell your brand story? So we are all personal brands. Over and above just the brands, let's just say some of us are working as solopreneurs and some of us are working for bigger organizations. So that brand story is our personal brand, but it's also our professional brand. And oftentimes that can dovetail really nicely together with your business brand as well for the company that you're working with. So does your profile sort of build trust with your audience? Because the stronger your profile is, the more likely you're going to gain opportunities. In fact, the more complete your LinkedIn profile, the more likely you're going to obtain opportunities as well. Now, I'm not going to go through a deep dive here specifically on LinkedIn. We're actually going to be talking about social selling today. But I will be available to field questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions about LinkedIn, I'm certainly happy to help you with that. So LinkedIn actually acts as your business card, your resume, and also your Rolodex. And this is why, again, building quality connections is so very important. As I sort of mentioned before, we don't exchange business cards without a conversation. So if you don't know your connections, reach out and get to know them. And so one example that I have is a business connection I made with a very high profile female entrepreneur based in Toronto, and she sent me a standardized connection request. But I replied to her with an email to say, I don't think we've met before, but I would really love to get to know your business better. Can we get together for a cup of coffee? Now, I thought I was only going to get 5 minutes of this woman's time, but she ended up meeting with me for over an hour and a half. And at the end of the meeting, she actually invited me to connect with her, and she actually asked if she could introduce me to some more influential people in her network. And basically, she said, whatever I can do to help, let me know. And so that, for me, was one of the key moments for me to recognize what a powerful network LinkedIn can be, because you just never know who can open up a door for you. Now, just overview quickly on how LinkedIn works, if you don't know this already, that LinkedIn is really based on the theory of 6 degrees of separation, that the only thing that connects you between anyone else in the world is 6 people. So if you wanted to meet with the Queen of England, or if you wanted to connect with a surfer in Australia, it really only takes 6 people to connect you. But LinkedIn uses a model of 3 degrees of separation. Now, the first degree connections are the people you are actually connected to on LinkedIn, the people that you've actually accepted their connection request. And in this example, you can see that I've got Eleanor Schwab, Jeff Pulver, and Jody Steinhauer are my first degree connections. In this example, you can also see my second degree connection is Deepak Chopra, the famous doctor. And so this is why those quality connections are important, is because, as you can see at the very bottom there, there's a little Get Introduced link that I can click on there, and I can ask one of those 3 people to do me a favor and introduce me to that particular person. So that is just a quick overview on how LinkedIn sort of uses that 3 models of separation. Actually, it's a bit of a lark. Some of you may have heard of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. That supposedly was between Kevin Bacon and any other actor in Hollywood. There's only 6 degrees, which I'm sure is probably now down to 3 degrees as well. So using these cold calls, you really can turn, using these connections, you can really turn a cold call into a warm introduction and really gain access to that dream client or dream connection. And as I mentioned, this is just a brief overview, but I'm going to share some resources at the end of this webinar to really show you how this works and how you can actually take this to the next level. Now, Twitter is also a great resource, but it really isn't for everyone. You have to spend more time on Twitter than any of the other channels really to gain traction and gain followers. I love Twitter. I've converted business as a result of being on this channel. I've met some amazing people. Some of you may be on this webinar now. I've met some amazing people that I've actually turned into real life, face-to-face friends that have helped me propel my business forward. So it really is a great tool. And how I started with Twitter was really using it as a research tool. I went on there to learn more about the industry of social media and how it works, and it also helped me connect with other influencers, helped me connect with people within the industry of social media, and so you can also connect with influencers from your network as well. It's helped me stay current with breaking news, and I've also been able to extend customer service as a result of it. Actually, the person that I spoke with, I think it was Monday that I spoke with at the CBC radio, and that was through Twitter. So you just never know about being on Twitter whether that's going to actually open up some opportunities for you. And I find it's been an amazing tool for conferences, because if I'm in one particular breakout session and something else is going on in a different room, I can find out what's going on, or if I'm not able to attend a live conference, I follow the Twitter feed at home. So it's a really, really useful tool for conferences as well. And it's frankly the easiest channel to jump into conversations and get to know other people. And in fact, because it's a public forum, people expect other people to jump in and participate in the conversation. And where one person once told me that Facebook is the site to go to connect with people that you already know, but Twitter's the site to connect with people that you want to get to know, so you can meet new people on this channel. And I know that some people think that Twitter is stupid, and quite frankly, I thought it was too until I started to use it. But you do have to spend time on this channel. There was a statistic that I had read recently, or not recently, a while ago, that said that you have to be tweeting at least 4 times a day in order to sort of develop a following and develop some traction. So it is something within 140 characters you can use in order to disseminate information and connect with other people. But again, if time is something that you don't have a lot of, then I would focus on LinkedIn. But if you have a bit of extra time to sort of play with a secondary channel, then I think you can really use Twitter for a lot of different reasons. Now, Twitter has approximately 241 active members and over 500 million registered users. The average number of tweets per day is about 400 million. Now, 184 monthly users are using Twitter by their mobile phone. That's how I usually connect with people on Twitter, is usually by my cell phone. And the average number of followers is about 208. Now, I have about 5,000 connections, and that may sound like a lot, but it's not. Again, it's not so much about the quantity of people, but rather the quality. I would much rather have 208 people that are following me, that really are interested in what I have to say and that are interested in participating in the conversation, than 5,000 followers. Not that I'm upset about having 5,000 followers. It's terrific, but it really is more important to really focus on the quality over the quantity. Most popular with 18 to 29-year-olds, but I really see that one of the fastest growing demographics is the 55 to 65-year-old demographic. And the ratio is about 53% female to 47% male as well. And about 23% of adult internet users are using Twitter. So as I mentioned, people who use Twitter a lot, they love it, but you need to be using it quite frequently. So I'm going to show you in a little bit how you can jump into conversations. But let's circle back again and talk a little bit about the personal brand for a moment. Now, it's really important for you to create a strong presence. And the reason for that is because your business is a brand and you are a brand. And we all, as I mentioned, are our own media company. So we produce content and can showcase our expertise. Most of us no longer stay with the same company for life. So there's also another reason for that. So when you're showcasing yourself as a brand, you actually are showcasing yourself over and above sort of the business that you're working with. So it really is important for us to showcase our expertise because we can gently lead people through the sales funnel and get inbound leads by positioning ourselves as an expert, as a thought leader. Now, when you produce information for people, you're ideally solving their problems because frankly, we can Google almost anything on the internet now, and people don't necessarily buy information, they buy implementation. And sort of a little bit of a side note, so for example, I was able to look up on YouTube how to fix the fan that had gone on my dashboard, the one that went with the heater in my car. And so I was able to Google how to fix that on my own. Now, I wouldn't trust myself to fix the brakes on my car, but something that I could easily, make a few amendments to, a few changes, change a spark plug or something like that is something where I can Google that information, but when it comes to implementation, when it really came down to the hard stuff, I'm actually going to hire someone to do that. So just to quote Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, he says, your personal brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. So it's really not about what you tell your clients or your prospects. It's really what your clients and prospects say about you. So we're going to do a little bit of a brief exercise to take a look at your brand story. Now, I hope that you took an opportunity to go to the LinkedIn summary exercise that I'd sent to you when you registered, because frankly, it took me a few hours to put that together, but it is a really, really useful tool. So just to go through that again, you really want to think about how you are different than everybody else out there. And you're going to want to answer, frankly, who your target audience is so that your prospects, your prospective clients know immediately who you are, how you work with them, and how you solve their problems. And you want to make this crystal clear. You shouldn't really be afraid to carve out a niche for yourself. I know a lot of people, including myself, are a little bit nervous to say if they work with a particular niche or if they do something specific, then that's going to exclude all sorts of other businesses. But in fact, it's not true. It's almost the opposite that happens. The more you sort of define your niche, the more you're seen as an expert, and you immediately become that go-to expert. So for example, I'm a professor of social media and I teach a social media marketing certificate at the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, but I've done my best to really become the LinkedIn gal. I've done my best to really showcase myself as somebody that works in that particular vertical. It's not because I can't do all the other social media stuff, but I really want to be the person that people think of when they think of LinkedIn and training. So you really want to understand what your clients' biggest problems or challenges are when you speak to them. So you almost kind of want to be a psychic or a mind reader of sorts, that you want to be 10 steps ahead of the problem that they may not even know that they have. So you want to think about what their biggest challenge or problem that they have is. And again, you sort of want to mirror back to them that, hey, listen, I know exactly where you are, I know where you've been, and I'm here to help. And how your business solves the problem as well. So you really want to showcase the specific key things that your business does to really help you solve the problems that no one else can seem to solve. And you also want to clearly define to yourself what makes you different than your competitors. And again, that worksheet is really going to help you to really formulate a comprehensive brand story. These are just fill in the blanks right now, but eventually, and using that particular worksheet, you will be able to craft your story through that. Now, your core values also are a big important part of your brand story as well. So, for example, my professional brand, the business that I have, you can see there, is like hot pink. There's a little bit of splash of hot pink, but my colors are really like a dominant red and an orange, and my business is called Punch Media. Now, when I'm not in the room, people usually tell me that I'm energetic and that I'm really passionate about what I do, and I talk really quickly, and I'm really excited, and so those colors and the energy that I bring to my brand really kind of dovetail together. So I'm all about energy, education, empowering people to feel confident about their professional presence. So for me, that's my brand story. And so I really want you to think about how your core values align with your brand story as well. You can include in your LinkedIn profile, and also if you're going to use Twitter, we'll talk about that in a minute, what your proudest accomplishments are. So for me to have been called a social media guru by CBC was a pretty proud accomplishment of mine. And you also want to be thinking about keywords that your target audience will use when they're searching for you. So this is another key element for fleshing out your brand story as well. So when people are looking for you, what are they keying into Google? Now, one of the things that's sort of interesting that I find that people say, I'm not really comfortable about talking about myself. It's really hard for me to toot my own horn. But what's great about LinkedIn is it's the channel where you're actually supposed to highlight your accomplishments. And it's so much easier to promote yourself as an expert when you highlight, this is what I'm really proud of, this is what I'm so excited about. And if you're not tooting your own horn, then really who's going to do it for you? So it's a lot easier to do it from behind the computer and really showcase and highlight all your accomplishments and what you stand for using a tool like LinkedIn. So you really, once you've developed your brand story, you really want to put that everywhere. So you can put your bio on the company website. I mean, if you're a solopreneur, obviously this is a lot easier than if you're a bigger organization, But on your LinkedIn summary, you have 2,000 characters to really flesh out who you are and how you help your audience. So this is really, really important for you to spend your time. In fact, it's actually a living and breathing document too. So this is not something, once you set it, don't forget it. You want to keep this up to date with the most relevant information about who you are. You may want to put calls to action in your LinkedIn profile to say how people can get in touch with you, who you work with, any of those other things that really can highlight exactly why people should be doing business with you. Now, as you can see here, your Twitter bio is a lot smaller. There's only 160 characters, and you really want to tighten things up to make sure that right away that people know exactly who you are and how you help them. And if you are challenged with any of these, having to write your profile or your brand story, you can give me a holler, because actually I do this for my clients all the time. I offer LinkedIn writing services for executives that frankly don't have the time to craft this for themselves. So you can give me a holler if you need a quote for these services. So we've gone through the process of creating a strong presence on those two particular channels. And so our next step is to connect with those quality connections. And the best strategy for social selling is to laser focus on your ideal client. As you remember, I talked a little bit about that inverted sales funnel. And you may remember that it got started with find, connect, and then convert and keep. So I provided that exercise, the ideal client avatar exercise, in the email. And the more that you know about your client, the better equipped you are to talk with them. You can mirror language back to them, and you can find the right words and understand all the things that they're saying by really doing a deep dive on who they are. And I'm going to, again, show you an example on how we do this in just a moment. So, but taking a look at their profile, like maybe you want to take a look at their LinkedIn profile. Is there information about their current position or past position that you can gather about them? If they're on Twitter, what are they tweeting about? The more information that you can gather about who they are, and then actually what you want to do, we're sort of looking from the broad perspective here. And what you can do once you have narrowed all the commonalities of your ideal sort of target audience, so if you look at it from an audience perspective, you can actually create a singular person. And you probably want to create a fictional name to that person, and probably even Google a fictional image that aligns with that person. Because when you're creating content and you're publishing content, whether that's your own summary or other content as well, the more you're able to speak one-on-one with them, then the more you're going to deepen rapport with them as well. And if they haven't met you, they'll really feel like you know their business because you're consistently providing that information to them that feels like that you already know, you really intimately know who they are and what problems that they seem to have. Now, the other interesting statistic, I love sort of substantiating things with statistics, is that cold calls actually don't work 97% of the time. And so with the spreadsheet or the questionnaire that you filled out before you came to this session, a lot of you either don't like it or just find it frustrating. So there's so many tools here within social media that you can actually use to actually turn the cold call into a warm introduction. And, you know, frankly, we can connect in LinkedIn groups, engage with people on Twitter, and use our network actually to get introduced to or jump into conversations. But what's important here is to really make sure that you use the right etiquette with the right channel. So we're going to talk a little bit about etiquette as well in a minute. So you want to, again, look at all of those, the people that you're connected with. Once you do that ideal customer avatar exercise and you figure out who exactly the perfect people that you are to work with, then you can glean information from their profiles in order to convert those cold calls. So I don't know if you knew this, but it takes between 8 to 10 touch points before you even start to build trust with your prospective client. So using the right etiquette is so very important because you don't automatically want to push a sale before you started to build a relationship. So let's just take, for example, just a very, very top-line overview. This is not a deep dive on how you could use LinkedIn in order to turn a cold call into a warm introduction. So you would want to look at their profile and see where did they go to school. Maybe they went to your alma mater. Or do you perhaps have a common connection who could introduce you? You can always engage with them in their LinkedIn groups in conversation. And when you are sending an invitation to connect with someone, usually I just simply pick the colleague button because I think a lot of people sort of get confused as to which sort of button to push there when you're connecting with someone. I always send a personalized note, and I usually pick the colleague sort of option because if I click on I don't know or other, it gets far too complicated. So I just go with the colleague button, and I'm not really quite sure why why they actually have all those different buttons other than sort of fielding out people that don't really know each other. But let's just say for this example, I met Wanda at a conference, and I want to basically send a personalized connection request to her because I want to remind her how we met before. Or if we haven't met before, why do I want to get in touch with her? So this is really, really important. It's one of the key essential elements on LinkedIn to reach out and make those introductions is to simply use that connection request and personalize it. And what's so important about that, again, that quality over quantity is your network is your net worth. And it means a lot for you to gather that Rolodex and take it with you if you happen to be moving throughout your career, is that all of those people that you've connected with on LinkedIn will actually go along with you. So let's take a really brief look at Twitter. As I mentioned, it's not for everyone, but from a prospective client sort of standpoint, it can be very useful, especially if jumping into conversations. Now, Twitter's a lot more like a water cooler where there's a lot of conversations being pushed out in under 140 characters, and it may seem a little bit more challenging to convert business, but it is a great research tool. So you can use twitter.com for /search-advanced to find certain people in certain niches. There's another tool called Follower Wonk that may be helpful for you. And on Twitter, you actually don't need an introduction from another person. You can simply engage and respond to their tweets or retweet content that they've published, tell them what you like about their post. And so these are just really two top-line examples on how you can use those channels to really connect with them. So let me just give you a real-life example here. So let's just say my dream client happens to be ESPN, that I want to get involved with someone at ESPN, and so how am I going to get my foot in the door? So obviously on LinkedIn, I search for ESPN in the search box. Now the second thing is I could see there as I typed in sort of ESPN that I have at least 2 people within my network that are 2 degrees away. Remember when I went back and showed you exactly how to, you know, that my first degree connections could introduce me to a second degree connection? Well, in this example, I'm going to look at Alison Overholt, who happens to be the editor-in-chief at ESPNW. And I can see here that she and I have a person in common, which is Ebony Shears. So I could simply either go to Ebony and ask her to do me a favor and introduce me to Alison, or there are other ways that I can go about and introduce myself. So let's just take Alison for the example. So let's just take a look. Alison is, as I mentioned, the editor-in-chief at ESPN, and taking a really good, she's a really great example because she's really written out her summary. So I can see that she's an adjunct professor, and I could say, hey, listen, I'm also a professor, so that's something we have in common. She's received a recommendation from that first degree connection, Ebony Shears, so I know I've met Ebony online. Actually, we've never met face-to-face, so we met online, and I can ask Ebony to introduce me if I wanted to. I can find out from her profile that she's directed award-winning investigative reports in certain categories, that she's won specific awards, that she's a Harvard grad, that she got a certificate at the Wharton School of Business, and she's even gone so far as including some of her interests, which happen to be basketball, science fiction, vocal jazz, skiing, and snowboarding. So if there's anything within this information that I've gathered about her, I could simply go to her and say, hey, Alison, you know, I noticed that we both have this in common, and I'd really love to connect with you because, and give her the reason why I want to connect with her. There's another sort of way that you can go ahead and connect with someone is join particular LinkedIn groups that that person is involved in as well. So I highly recommend joining at least one LinkedIn group where your prospects may be hanging out. Join the group, and that way you can get a lot of research from them as well. Not only can you get a lot of research because the conversations in there may be relevant to your industry and you can answer them, but also you can connect with people within the conversations as well. So just taking a look at that, looking through the groups that she's in and who she's following as influencers is also going to help me to sort of gain contact with her. I also noticed as I sort of scrolled back up into her profile that Alison is also on Twitter. Lucky me. So I clicked on Alison's Twitter, the link to her Twitter handle, and then I was able to do an even deeper dive on some of the information that she's published. Now, you don't necessarily have to be on Twitter in order to get this information, but you do have to have a Twitter account in order to connect or follow someone. So what is some of the information that I sort of gathered from Alison's profile from her Twitter feed? Well, I noticed that she's an avid runner. And I'm not a runner myself, but I could simply ask her about running advice. I could share a recent article on running that she might find particularly important. So let's just say she's gearing up for a particular race, and I could find some information on that particular race. I could share that information. Simply engaging in conversation in some way, shape, or form on Twitter, again, can help me get my foot in the door. Now, I caution saying, like, you want to do this authentically. You don't want to just sort of do it smarmy or spammy. You really want to do this with all sorts of authenticity as well. So as I mentioned, social media really is about relationship. It's not about selling. It's not about pushing your agenda. It's about gathering information and finding out what you can do to help your target audience. It's about relationship building. So while you still may have, golf junkets and fancy parties still may be in your wheelhouse if you still have a big budget, but social media is really just another tool in your toolbox. And most people really, frankly, aren't using social media actively for sales. So taking action now and using these tools to actually propel yourself forward, you're going to be well ahead of your peers if you take the action steps that I've given you today and you actually do some of the fundamentals here in order to really propel yourself forward. So again, this is just a tip of the iceberg for the potential of what social selling has to offer. And so I don't know if I mentioned in the beginning, hopefully I did, that I have some opportunities for you to sort of take advantage of if you want to learn a little bit more about using these tools. So, but before I sort of go ahead and give you an overview on some of the opportunities that I actually have for you to learn and do a deeper dive in social selling and in LinkedIn, I just want to sort of circle back again to make sure that you recognize that this three-pronged approach is really quite simple. It doesn't need to be overwhelming. You can really, really narrow it down by starting with that strong brand presence, that brand story. And on LinkedIn specifically, the 3 key areas that you want to focus on just to even get started is that summary is so important, your headline, and your professional picture. Those are the 3 key areas you want to focus on for LinkedIn. Again, connecting with quality people and building your audience based on that. And I met with a client not too long ago, and he didn't even know he was using LinkedIn for social selling. It was actually quite interesting the way that he used this. So he would leverage his first-degree connections to look for his ideal clients. And then he would, again, just introduce people, like find ways to say, hey, listen, I know Jane Smith in common. You know, this is what I do, and I'd really love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Now, he didn't do any selling right away. What he did right away was, or within the day, was follow up with a phone call to that person right afterwards, or like within the day, and say, hey, you know what, we just recently connected on LinkedIn, and I was wondering if you had a moment for me to sort of talk to you a little bit about what I do and how maybe I can help your business. But before he actually made that phone call, he did his research, he sent the connection request and all sorts of things. So it does take a few touch points in order for you. Gary Vaynerchuk has a great book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And the metaphor of that amazing book is you want to give, give, give. So when you're ready for the sell, you have already given, given, given. And when you're ready for the sell, you go in with the right hook. So, and that's all about, you know, having conversations. And that way you're going to propel, you know, you're going to actually convert business that way. So, so we talked again about that 3-pronged approach. And unfortunately, I don't have, you know, obviously we only have an hour to sort of go through a lot of this material. And so I just want to say that I am actually showcasing all of this in a masterclass that I'll be just talking about in a second. So I think one of the most important things before I sort of wrap up the training part of this is to remember that the social is a conversation, and that conversation builds awareness and trust, but social selling doesn't end there. It's just the beginning. So once you've acquired the client, you really want to stay in touch with them. You don't want to pass it off to someone else that doesn't. One of the clients that I was working with at Wedding Bells, she and I went for lunch the other day, and she said, you know, it's interesting. You know, a lot of times in sales, people will say, you know, I only hear from my sales rep when it's time for me to renew my contract. I was never about that. I was always interested in following up with people in between the time that it was, you know, the time was up for renewal. And that person said that it really made a huge difference when I was their sales rep at Wedding Bells, because I really genuinely cared about their business, and I was constantly touching base with them to see how things were going. So you want to make sure that you're closing the sale is the beginning of a long-term relationship. So, and you know, you want to think too that social media, maybe we are connecting computer to computer or device to device, but really it's about sociology and psychology more than it is about technology. And that was a huge shift for me. Once I saw this quote from Brian Solis, the guy that I was talking about, the digital anthropologist that I talked about earlier, once I saw this quote from him, it made complete sense to me that we treat people online, we should be treating people online the way that we treat them face-to-face and in real life. So it doesn't change. So I just wanted to sort of give you a few different options on what you can do in order to really help take yourself and take your presence into sort of the next step. So the first thing is this online training program that I have. It's 3 video modules, under an hour in total, and it's online already, and it has a LinkedIn workbook. Now you've already seen the LinkedIn summary that comes from that workbook. There's mini modules, and there's also an online question and answer group that I've invited you to join as well. And basically, you have lifetime access to this video training program. That's $97 Canadian. So if you're calling in from the States, it's an even better deal. I'm just in the process of launching a masterclass. And this is 6 weeks of really one-on-one, really one-on-group, really, of a smaller, intimate group where there are going to be actionable exercises, live Q&A office hours, and you know, included in that bonus is also access to the LinkedIn training program as well. So really it'll be sort of a turnkey program, 6 weeks of videos and exercises and one-on-ones with me that you'll be able to really take a good deeper dive into to how social selling really works. And then the third option is, you can connect with me. As I mentioned before, I do LinkedIn writing and optimization for clients like Guardian Life Insurance Company of America and so forth. And so if you just want something turnkey and you really want to delegate creating that presence to me, then you can also connect with me, and I'll give you a quote on those services as well. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about this masterclass. So I've outlined here that the class itself is going to be a 6-week program, as I mentioned, starting on March 25th. And we're going to do kind of what we talked about today, but a much, much deeper dive each week on, developing the strategy and the framework, crafting your brand story, creating that ideal client avatar, going through some social media body language and etiquette. So this is kind of a fun one where I'm going to actually be talking a little bit more about some cues for social selling and some ideas on how to gain rapport with people using social media and other ways to help to convert business as well. On April 22nd, it'll be sort of extending the reach even further and converting new business, and then wrapping it up all together. And like every infomercial, but there's more. There is an accountability group. So this is the key part that I find is so important, is being connected with other people that hold me accountable to make sure that I get my work done. So there will be an accountability group, and as I mentioned, there's weekly office hours where people can call. You can call in and connect with me and connect with the class and so forth. You'll have free lifetime access to that LinkedIn training that I mentioned. And at the end of it, I'll also audit your LinkedIn profile for free. So I'm going to be opening up the basically in the group chat. There's a group chat, as I mentioned in the beginning, up in the top left-hand corner. If you have any questions about this or anything else, go ahead and start typing them into the chat box, and Jaden is going to jump on board to field some of those questions and answer them in a second. So does anybody have any particular questions? Yeah, so just kind of sliding through the end here. Actually, one thing before I mention, it's only $599 for the masterclass, but the early bird rate, if you sign up before before March 1st, is $499 Canadian. So I said this is 6 weeks of a program that will be really intensive. It'll be really, really helpful, and you will, if you convert one client as a result of booking with this program, it'll be really, really, really worth your investment. So I'm not seeing any questions so far in the Q&A, but I sure know that there's probably questions out there, so I was smart enough to think about some ahead of time. Go ahead and type them into the chat box if you want, and Jaden will come on board if there is anything. But in the meantime, I'm going to answer my own questions and answers because I constantly, there's a couple questions that I get when I'm training live. And number one is, should I pay for a premium account on LinkedIn? And that's a really good question. And it really depends upon whether or not you are going to use it, number one, because it's really quite an expensive investment for sales. But if you are converting business and you're getting your return on investment, then it's important. Then it really would be worthwhile. So it does help provide you with a deeper dive for research, and it allows you to sort of bypass connection requests, using InMail. So I don't know if you're familiar with InMail, but InMail is one of the most powerful aspects of LinkedIn. And so it allows you to sort of bypass the gatekeepers by sending an immediate email to people on LinkedIn. So I know a lot of people who have used premium accounts absolutely love it, but you really have to actually be using it to reap the rewards. So you can also try out the premium account by, I don't know if I can show you on my screen in a minute, but you can have a free trial membership for a month. So you may want to check that out as well. The next question I asked myself to answer is, do you need a company page? And so it really is good to have your company page. It's good to create a company page for your business on LinkedIn. Now, most people don't necessarily go to LinkedIn to connect with your company if you are like if you're a solopreneur like me, then or a smaller business owner like me, then spending a lot of time creating a company page probably isn't worth the investment of time. The only thing that is valuable of it is that when I have Punch Media on my LinkedIn profile, then it automatically links to that page and actually shows my logo on there as well. But also, if I want to spend money and time in advertising, then you have to have a company page for that as well. So the bigger the company, the more important it is to invest in that company page, because for that particular reason, the bigger the company, the more it becomes sort of a hub. And as you can see with the ESPN example, then that's how people are connected with each other. And so I think the only thing sort of to say to sort of wrap up here, since we have no questions, is to say thank you so much for spending the last bit of time with me. I really hope that this has helped you take your social selling into a whole new take it to a whole new level, and that you've really built some key takeaway pieces here, and that you can reach out to me on any of the social media channels. And I really hope that you'll join me as a part of the the masterclass starting on March 25th. And I'm trying to find a way to sort of say goodbye by stopping to share my screen here, but I don't think. Oh, there we go. Okay. Hopefully you can see me now. So hopefully that was really, really informative and helpful for all of you. Again, I'm sorry that if you didn't have any questions, or maybe we just didn't see any of the questions, but I do really thank you for taking the time to spend with me for the past hour. And if you do have any questions over and above this, then please reach out and connect with me. I will be sending a follow-up email. Hopefully this presentation did work out via video, and other than that, I look forward to connecting with you again really soon. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.